Hey everyone, I've never posted on Reddit before, but I feel like I need to get this off my chest. I'm not even sure if I'm looking for advice or just trying to make sense of what happened. Let's just call me John. I'm 35 and my wife, let's call her Emily, is 33. We've been married for 10 years and until recently, I thought we had a pretty solid relationship. It all started a few months ago when Emily began acting differently. At first it was subtle. She'd come home later than usual, claiming she had to work late or went out with some girlfriends. I didn't think much of it at the time because she's always been a social butterfly, and her job sometimes requires extra hours. But then there were more frequent phone calls and texts that she would step out of the room to answer, and she started being more secretive with her phone in general. I noticed her putting a passcode on it, something she'd never done before. One night she came home around 3 a.m., reeking of alcohol. She said she'd been out with her coworkers, but something felt off. She was disheveled, her hair a mess, and her clothes wrinkled. I asked her if everything was all right, and she snapped at me, saying I was being paranoid and overreacting. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing with all kinds of thoughts and suspicions. I decided to talk to my best friend Mike about it. He's known me since college, and he's always been a good sounding board. Mike listened patiently, and then suggested that I keep an eye on things. He didn't want to jump to conclusions, but he agreed that something didn't seem right. Over the next few weeks, I noticed more and more red flags. Emily started taking more business trips, always to cities nearby, which didn't make much sense to me. She'd come back with extravagant gifts, saying they were from a successful client or a bonus. I wanted to believe her, but the nagging feeling in my gut told me otherwise. Then, one day, while Emily was in the shower, her phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at the screen and saw a message preview from someone named Jake that read, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." My heart sank. I didn't recognize the name, and I knew it wasn't one of her coworkers or friends. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I decided to gather more evidence. I know it sounds sneaky, but I needed to be sure before I accused her of anything. I installed a tracking app on her phone and started monitoring her messages and locations. What I found was even worse than I'd imagined. Emily was cheating on me with multiple men. There was Jake, Tom, and even her so-called client, Steve. They'd meet up in hotels, sometimes even at our house when I was away on business trips. The texts and photos were explicit, and the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. My wife, the woman I'd loved and trusted for a decade, was living a double life. I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't eat or sleep, and I started drinking heavily to numb the pain. I wanted to confront her right away, but a part of me needed to process everything first. I talked to Mike again, and he was shocked and angry on my behalf. He urged me to get a lawyer and start planning my next steps. I knew he was right, but it was so hard to think clearly with all the emotions swirling inside me. One night I finally decided to confront Emily. I waited until she came home from one of her supposed business trips. She walked in the door looking cheerful and carefree, and I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. I couldn't hold it in any longer. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with rage. She looked at me, surprised and confused. "Sure, what's going on?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "I know about Jake and Tom and Steve. I know you've been cheating on me," I said, my voice breaking. Her face went pale, and for a moment she was speechless. "John, It's not what you think," she stammered. "They're just friends, I swear." "Don't lie to me, Emily. I've seen the texts, the photos. I know everything," I shouted, my anger boiling over. Her eyes filled with tears, and she started crying. "I'm so sorry, John. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was lonely, and things just got out of hand. Please, we can work this out," she pleaded. But I couldn't listen to her excuses anymore. I was done. The woman I thought I knew and loved had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and there was no going back. After that explosive confrontation, I felt like I was living in a nightmare. Emily's tears and pleas for forgiveness echoed in my mind, but I couldn't let myself be swayed. The evidence of her betrayal was undeniable. I knew I had to stay strong and see this through to the end. In the days that followed, I continued to gather evidence. I needed to build a rock-solid case if I was going to get through the divorce, with as little collateral damage as possible. I consulted a divorce lawyer, Rebecca, who was highly recommended by Mike. She was sharp, tough, and had a reputation for being ruthless in court. Rebecca listened to my story, reviewed the evidence I had collected, and then looked me straight in the eyes. "John, you have a solid case, but you need to be prepared for a fight. Emily will likely try to paint a different picture. Stay calm and let's make sure we have everything lined up." I spent hours with Rebecca, going through every text message, every location log, and every suspicious financial transaction. It was emotionally draining, but I knew it was necessary. Rebecca advised me to be discreet and not tip Emily off about our plans. She also suggested hiring a private investigator to dig deeper into Emily's activities. Enter Jack, the PI. He was an older guy, a bit rough around the edges, but he had a reputation for being thorough and effective. Jack started tailing Emily, documenting her every move. Within a week, he had gathered damning evidence. Photos of Emily meeting different men at various locations, hotel receipts, and even recordings of her conversations. Seeing the extent of her deceit laid out in front of me was both heartbreaking and enraging. Emily wasn't just having a fling. She was leading a double life. There were men in different cities, different professions, and all of them seemed to believe they were the only one. She had crafted an intricate web of lies and deceit, and I was caught in the middle of it. One evening, while Emily was out, Jack called me. "John, you need to see this. I've got something big." He sent over a series of photos and documents that revealed Emily's most recent escapade. She had been seeing a wealthy businessman, Richard, for the past 6 months. They traveled together, dined at fancy restaurants, and she had even introduced him to her friends as a potential business partner. I felt a surge of rage and disgust. How could she do this to me, to us? I had given her everything, my love, my trust, my life. And this was how she repaid me? I decided it was time for another confrontation. This time, I would be prepared. I invited Mike and Rebecca over for support, and we set up a recording device to capture the conversation. I wanted everything on record. Emily came home late again, looking slightly tipsy. She saw Mike and Rebecca sitting in the living room and raised an eyebrow. "What's going on, John?" "Sit down, Emily," I said, my voice steady. "We need to talk." She hesitated but then sat down, glancing nervously at Mike and Rebecca. "What is this?" "I know about Richard," I said, watching her reaction closely. She flinched, and her eyes widened. "John, I can explain," she started, but I cut her off. "Save it, Emily. I have all the evidence. Photos, documents, recordings. You've been cheating on me with multiple men, leading a double life. How could you do this?" My voice cracked with the weight of my emotions. She started crying again, but this time it felt hollow. "John, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I felt trapped. Our marriage wasn't fulfilling anymore. I needed something more." "Something more? So you decided to sleep with half the city? You could have talked to me. We could have worked things out. But you chose to lie and cheat," I said, my anger rising again. Mike stepped in, his voice calm but firm. "Emily, we have everything we need for the divorce. This is happening. You need to pack your things and leave. John deserves better than this." Emily looked stunned, her tears drying up as the reality of the situation sank in. "But where will I go?" Rebecca spoke up. "That's not John's problem anymore. You've made your choices, and now you have to deal with the consequences." Emily stood up, her face pale and her hands trembling. She looked at me one last time, but I couldn't meet her gaze. I was done. She turned and walked upstairs to pack, leaving me with a mixture of relief and sorrow. As she packed her things, I felt a strange sense of calm. The worst was over, and now it was time to move forward. But the road ahead was uncertain, and I knew the emotional fallout would be significant. Emily's departure marked the beginning of an emotional roller coaster I wasn't prepared for. Watching her pack up and leave, knowing she was taking pieces of my heart with her, was devastating. I felt a strange mix of anger, sadness, and a hollow emptiness that I couldn't shake. Mike and Rebecca stayed with me that night, offering support and companionship. We sat in the living room, talking through everything that had happened. Mike, always the pragmatic one, suggested I get rid of anything that reminded me of Emily. He called it purging the past. Rebecca, on the other hand, focused on the legal side, reminding me to document everything and keep the divorce proceedings smooth. In the days that followed, I felt like a ghost drifting through my own life. The house was eerily quiet without Emily's presence. Every corner held memories of happier times, now tainted by her betrayal. I tried to keep busy, throwing myself into work and mundane tasks to distract myself from the pain. One afternoon, as I was cleaning out the closet, I came across a box of old photos and mementos from our time together. There were pictures from our honeymoon, anniversaries, and countless vacations. Each photo felt like a punch to the gut, reminding me of the life we once had. I sat on the floor, surrounded by these memories, and let the tears flow. Mike visited often, trying to keep my spirits up. He'd bring over pizza and beer, and we'd watch movies or play video games like we used to in college. His presence was a comfort, a reminder that not everything in my life was falling apart. But despite his best efforts, the loneliness was overwhelming. One night, as I was scrolling through social media, I saw a post from Emily. She was at a fancy restaurant, smiling and holding a glass of wine, with Richard by her side. The caption read, "New beginnings." My heart ached seeing her move on so quickly, flaunting her new life as if our decade-long marriage meant nothing. I couldn't take it anymore. I unfollowed her and blocked her on all platforms. Out of sight, out of mind, I told myself. But the damage was done. The image of her happy and carefree while I was drowning in sorrow was seared into my brain. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Andrews, to help me navigate the emotional turmoil. During our sessions, I poured out my heart, reliving the betrayal and trying to make sense of my feelings. Dr. Andrews helped me understand that it was okay to grieve, to feel angry and hurt. She encouraged me to find healthy outlets for my emotions and to focus on self-care. One evening, I decided to go through the financials again, making sure everything was in order for the divorce. As I reviewed our joint accounts, I noticed several large withdrawals that I couldn't explain. They were made over the past year, and the amounts were significant. I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. What else had Emily been hiding from me? The next day, I met with Rebecca to discuss the financial discrepancies. She agreed that the withdrawals were suspicious and suggested we dig deeper. She contacted Jack, the PI, and asked him to investigate further. A few days later, Jack came back with more disturbing news. Emily had been funneling money into a separate account under a different name. It was clear she had been planning her exit for a while, preparing for a life without me. The betrayal cut even deeper. Not only had she cheated on me with multiple men, but she had also been stealing from me, from us. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Emily had never intended to work things out or come clean. She had been plotting her escape, ensuring she had a safety net while leaving me with nothing but heartache. I felt a surge of anger and determination. Emily wasn't going to get away with this. With Rebecca's help, we froze the joint accounts and filed for an emergency hearing to address the financial issues. The legal battle was going to be messy, but I was ready. I wasn't going to let Emily ruin my life any more than she already had. Throughout the process, I kept reminding myself of what Dr. Andrews had said, that it was okay to grieve, to feel anger and hurt. But I also knew I needed to start thinking about my future, about how to rebuild my life. It wasn't going to be easy, but I had to believe that there was light at the end of this dark tunnel. As the days turned into weeks, the initial shock and anger began to subside, replaced by a steely resolve. I focused on the legal proceedings, on securing my financial future, and on healing emotionally. It was a long road ahead, but I was determined to come out stronger on the other side. The legal proceedings were brutal. Emily's deceitful nature didn't stop with her affairs. She fought tooth and nail to keep as much as she could. Every day was a new challenge, a fresh wave of anger and frustration. But Rebecca was a fierce advocate, and with her guidance, I navigated the choppy waters of divorce. Our first court hearing was tense. Emily sat across from me looking cold and distant, a stark contrast to the woman I once knew. She tried to paint herself as the victim, claiming that our marriage had driven her to seek comfort elsewhere. But Rebecca was relentless, presenting the evidence of her affairs, the financial misdeeds and the lies. The judge wasn't swayed by Emily's crocodile tears. As the court proceedings dragged on, I found myself grappling with a range of emotions. There were days when I felt liberated, as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But there were also days when the loneliness was crushing and I questioned everything. Had I been a terrible husband? Was there something I could have done differently? Dr. Andrews helped me understand that these feelings were normal. She encouraged me to focus on myself, to find new interests and rediscover who I was outside of my marriage. I started going to the gym, something I hadn't done in years. It was therapeutic, a way to channel my anger and frustration into something positive. One night, Mike convinced me to go out for drinks. It was the first time I'd been out socially since Emily left, and I was hesitant. But Mike insisted, saying I needed to get out of the house and have some fun. We went to a local bar, and for a few hours I managed to forget about my troubles. We laughed, reminisced about old times, and for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. Despite the occasional moments of respite, the divorce proceedings were still taking a toll. Emily continued to lie and manipulate, trying to secure as much financial support as she could, but the more she fought, the stronger my resolve became. I wasn't going to let her win. Rebecca was a rock throughout the process. She was meticulous, ensuring that every detail was accounted for, every lie exposed. Her determination and expertise were invaluable, and slowly but surely we began to make progress. The judge started to see through Emily's facade, recognizing the extent of her deceit. Eventually, the court ruled in my favor. Emily was awarded a minimal settlement, just enough to cover her basic needs, but nothing more. The judge admonished her for her actions, making it clear that her behavior was unacceptable. It was a small victory, but it felt like a giant leap toward reclaiming my life. With the legal battle behind me, I turned my attention to the future. I sold the house, unable to bear living in a place filled with so many painful memories. I moved into a small apartment downtown, a fresh start in a new environment. It was a modest place, but it was mine, a symbol of my independence and resilience. As I settled into my new life, I focused on rebuilding myself. I continued therapy, delving deeper into my emotions and understanding the impact of Emily's betrayal. Dr. Andrews helped me navigate the complex feelings of anger, sadness, and loneliness, guiding me toward a place of acceptance and healing. I also reconnected with old friends and made new ones. Mike was a constant presence, always there to lift my spirits and remind me of the good in life. I started joining social groups and activities, pushing myself to step out of my comfort zone and embrace new experiences. One evening, while attending a local book club, I met a woman named Sarah. She was kind, intelligent, and had a warmth about her that drew me in. We started talking, and over time, a friendship blossomed. Sarah had been through her own share of hardships, and we found solace in sharing our stories and supporting each other. Despite the growing bond with Sarah, I remained cautious. Emily's betrayal had left deep scars, and the thought of trusting someone new was daunting. But Sarah was patient and understanding, never pushing me to move faster than I was comfortable with. She became a beacon of hope, a reminder that not all people were like Emily. As the months passed, I began to see the light at the end of the tunnel. The pain and anger slowly started to fade, replaced by a sense of peace and acceptance. I realized that while Emily's betrayal had shattered my world, it had also given me the opportunity to rebuild and rediscover myself. In the end, I learned that healing is a journey, not a destination. It takes time, effort, and a lot of self-reflection. But it's possible. And while I may never fully trust in love again, I know that I'm stronger and wiser because of what I've been through. Rebuilding my life after the divorce was a challenge, but it was also an opportunity for growth. Moving into my new apartment downtown was a significant step. It was a modest place, but it felt like a fresh start, a blank canvas where I could paint a new future. I filled my days with activities that brought me joy and helped me heal. I started going to the gym regularly, finding solace in the routine and the endorphins. The physical activity was a great way to channel my anger and frustration, and over time, I started feeling stronger and more confident. I also immersed myself in hobbies that I had neglected during my marriage. I took up cooking, experimenting with new recipes, and enjoying the process of creating something from scratch. It was therapeutic, a way to focus my mind on something positive and productive. I even started a small garden on my apartment balcony, nurturing plants and watching them grow. It was a small but meaningful reminder that life goes on, and new beginnings are possible. One of the most significant changes was reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. Mike was my rock throughout this period, always there to offer support and encouragement. We spent countless evenings together, reminiscing about the past and making new memories. He introduced me to his circle of friends, and I slowly started to build a new social network. One night, Mike convinced me to join him at a local trivia night. I was hesitant at first, not sure if I was ready to be around so many people. But I decided to give it a shot, and it turned out to be a great decision. The atmosphere was lively, the questions challenging, and the camaraderie infectious. I met a lot of interesting people that night, and it felt good to be part of something fun and social again. Amidst all these changes, my friendship with Sarah continued to grow. She was a constant source of support and understanding, always there to listen and offer a kind word. We spent hours talking about our experiences, sharing our fears and hopes for the future. Sarah had her own share of heartbreak, and our shared vulnerability created a deep bond between us. Despite my growing feelings for Sarah, I remained cautious. The wounds from Emily's betrayal were still fresh, and the thought of opening myself up to someone new was daunting. But Sarah never pressured me. She understood my need for time and space, and was content to let our relationship develop at its own pace. One evening, we decided to go for a walk along the river. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the water. We walked in comfortable silence for a while, just enjoying each other's presence. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. "John, I know you've been through a lot, and I want you to know that I'm here for you no matter what. I don't expect anything more than what you're ready to give. But I do care about you, and I hope you know that you're not alone in this," she said, her voice soft and sincere. Her words touched me deeply, and I felt a surge of gratitude and affection for her. "Thank you, Sarah. You've been a true friend to me, and I can't tell you how much that means. I'm not sure where this will go, but I'm willing to find out, step by step," I replied, squeezing her hand gently. As the weeks turned into months, my life gradually began to take on a new shape. I focused on my work, taking on new projects and challenges that reignited my passion. I started volunteering at a local shelter, finding fulfillment in helping others. It was a reminder that despite my pain, I still had a lot to give. One day, while going through some old boxes, I found a journal that I had kept during the early years of my marriage with Emily. Flipping through the pages, I was struck by the contrast between the hopeful, optimistic man I once was and the person I had become. But instead of feeling sad, I felt a sense of pride. I had survived the worst and was slowly finding my way back to happiness. Dr. Andrews helped me see that healing is a journey, not a destination. She encouraged me to be patient with myself and to celebrate the small victories. With her guidance, I learned to forgive myself for the mistakes I had made, and to let go of the anger and bitterness that had been holding me back. One evening, I received a call from Rebecca. The divorce was officially finalized, and I was free to move on with my life. I felt a sense of relief and closure. The chapter with Emily was finally over, and I could fully focus on my future. I decided to mark the occasion with a small gathering of friends. We met at a local restaurant, shared stories, and laughed late into the night. It was a celebration of new beginnings and a testament to the strength of friendship and resilience. As the night drew to a close, I looked around the table at the people who had supported me through the darkest times. Mike, always there with a joke and a smile. Rebecca, who had fought tirelessly on my behalf. And Sarah, whose kindness and patience had helped me believe in love again. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I knew I wasn't alone. I had a new support system, new passions, and the courage to face whatever came next. The finalization of the divorce marked a turning point in my life. With Emily officially out of the picture, I felt a profound sense of freedom and relief. I no longer had to worry about her lies and betrayals. I could focus entirely on myself and my future. I threw myself into work, taking on new projects and responsibilities that reignited my passion for my career. It felt good to be productive and to see tangible results from my efforts. My colleagues noticed the change in me, and I started receiving more recognition and praise for my work. It was a welcome boost to my confidence. Sarah and I continued to spend time together, and our bond grew stronger with each passing day. Despite my initial hesitations, I found myself opening up to her more and more. She was patient and understanding, never pushing me beyond what I was comfortable with. Her presence was a constant source of comfort and stability. One weekend, Sarah suggested we take a trip to the mountains. It was something I'd always wanted to do but never had the chance. We rented a cozy cabin, packed our bags, and set off for a much-needed getaway. The drive up to the mountains was beautiful. The scenery was breathtaking, with lush forests and winding roads that seemed to go on forever. We talked and laughed, enjoying the simplicity of being together without any distractions. When we arrived at the cabin, it was even better than I had imagined. It was nestled in a secluded area, surrounded by towering trees and a serene lake. The air was crisp and clean, a refreshing change from the city. We spent our days hiking, exploring the trails, and taking in the stunning views. At night, we'd sit by the fireplace, sipping hot cocoa and talking about our dreams and aspirations. There was something magical about being in nature, away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. It gave us the space to connect on a deeper level and to truly appreciate each other's company. One evening, as we sat by the lake watching the sunset, Sarah turned to me and said, "John, I know you've been through a lot, and I don't want to rush things, but I want you to know that I'm here for you no matter what. I care about you deeply, and I'm willing to take this journey with you, one step at a time." Her words touched me deeply. I took a deep breath and replied, "Sarah, you've been my rock through all of this. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I want you to be a part of it. You've helped me believe in love again, and I'm grateful for that every day." We shared a tender kiss, the setting sun casting a golden glow over the water. It was a moment of pure bliss, a reminder that even after the darkest storms, there's always a chance for new beginnings. Returning to the city, I felt rejuvenated and hopeful. The trip had given me a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that I had the support of Sarah and my friends. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah and I continued to build our relationship. We celebrated the small milestones, like our first holiday together and the first time we cooked a meal in my apartment. Each moment was a testament to the strength of our bond and the healing power of love. Meanwhile, I continued my sessions with Dr. Andrews. Therapy was a crucial part of my healing process, helping me navigate the complex emotions that still lingered from my past. Dr. Andrews encouraged me to focus on self-compassion and to embrace the journey of self-discovery. One day, while going through some old belongings, I found a letter that I had written to myself during the early days of my marriage with Emily. It was full of hope and dreams for the future, a stark contrast to the man I had become. But instead of feeling sad, I felt a sense of pride. I had come a long way, and I was determined to continue growing and evolving. I decided to write a new letter to myself, a reflection of my journey and a commitment to my future. In it, I promised to always prioritize my well-being, to cherish the relationships that brought me joy, and to never lose sight of my dreams. It was a symbolic act, a way to close one chapter and open another. As time went on, my life began to take on a new rhythm. I found joy in the simple things, a good book, a walk in the park, a meal with friends. I started volunteering at the local animal shelter, finding fulfillment in helping those in need. It was a reminder that even in the midst of personal pain, there's always an opportunity to make a positive impact. One evening, as Sarah and I sat on my apartment balcony watching the city lights, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Life had thrown me some curveballs, but I had come out stronger and wiser. I had learned to value myself, to cherish the people who truly cared about me, and to never take love for granted. Sarah took my hand and smiled. "John, I'm so proud of you. You've been through so much, but you've come out on the other side with grace and strength. I'm excited for our future together, whatever it may hold." I squeezed her hand and replied, "Thank you, Sarah. You've been my light in the darkness, and I'm grateful for every moment we share. Here's to new beginnings and endless possibilities." As we sat there looking out at the world before us, I felt a sense of peace and contentment. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was ready to embrace it with open arms. I had found love again, not just with Sarah, but with myself. And that was the greatest victory of all. With Emily officially out of my life, and Sarah becoming an increasingly important part of it, I began to fully embrace my new beginnings. The divorce had been a painful but necessary process, one that ultimately freed me to pursue happiness and fulfillment without the shadow of betrayal hanging over me. Sarah and I grew closer with each passing day. We traveled together, explored new hobbies, and supported each other through life's ups and downs. Our relationship was built on trust, respect, and a deep understanding of one another's pasts. It felt refreshing to be with someone who genuinely cared about my well-being and wanted to see me thrive. One day, Sarah suggested we take a cooking class together. She knew how much I had come to enjoy cooking, and she thought it would be a fun way for us to bond and learn something new. We signed up for a course on Italian cuisine, and it quickly became a highlight of our week. We laughed as we tried to perfect our pasta-making skills, shared stories over homemade meals, and found joy in the simple act of creating something together. Our time in the kitchen wasn't just about food. It was about building memories and strengthening our connection. Each dish we made was a testament to our growing love and partnership. It reminded me that even after the darkest times, there are always opportunities for new and beautiful experiences. In addition to our cooking adventures, I continued to focus on my personal growth. Therapy with Dr. Andrews remained a cornerstone of my healing process. She helped me navigate lingering feelings of distrust and fear, encouraging me to embrace vulnerability and open my heart to the possibilities of the future. One afternoon, during a particularly insightful session, Dr. Andrews asked me a question that stuck with me. "John, what do you see when you look at your future? What are your hopes and dreams now that you've come through this storm?" I took a moment to reflect before answering. I see a future where I prioritize my happiness and well-being. I want to continue exploring my passions, whether it's cooking, traveling, or volunteering. And I want to build a life with Sarah, one that's filled with love, trust, and mutual support. Dr. Andrews smiled. "That sounds like a beautiful vision, John. Remember that you have the power to create the life you want. You've already shown incredible resilience and strength. Trust yourself and keep moving forward." Her words resonated deeply with me. For so long, my identity had been tied to my marriage with Emily and the pain of her betrayal. But now, I had the chance to redefine myself and create a future that truly reflected my values and desires. One evening, as Sarah and I sat on the balcony of my apartment, watching the city lights twinkle below, I felt a sense of clarity and purpose. I turned to her and said, "Sarah, there's something I want to share with you." She looked at me with curiosity and warmth. "What is it, John?" "I've been thinking a lot about our future," I began, "and I want you to know how much you mean to me. You've brought so much joy and love into my life, and I can't imagine a future without you. I know we've both been through a lot, but I believe we can build something truly special together." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she smiled. "John, I feel the same way. You've become such an important part of my life, and I'm so grateful for every moment we share. I believe in us and our future together." We held each other close, the city lights providing a beautiful backdrop to our heartfelt conversation. In that moment, I realized that I had found something truly precious, a love that was built on trust, respect, and a deep connection. It was a stark contrast to the tumultuous relationship I had with Emily, and it gave me hope for the future. As the months passed, Sarah and I continued to nurture our relationship. We moved in together, blending our lives and creating a home that was filled with love and laughter. Our friends and family supported us, celebrating our journey and the happiness we had found. On our 1-year anniversary, I decided to take a leap of faith. I planned a romantic dinner at the same spot by the river where we had first shared our feelings for each other. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the water, I took Sarah's hand and got down on one knee. "Sarah, you have been my rock, my confidant, and my greatest source of joy. You've helped me heal and believe in love again. Will you marry me and continue this incredible journey together?" Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, her smile radiant. "Yes, John, I will. I love you more than words can express." The next few months were a whirlwind of planning and excitement. Our wedding was a beautiful celebration of love and new beginnings, surrounded by our closest friends and family. As we exchanged vows, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and joy. I had come through the darkest times and found a love that was genuine and true. In the years that followed, Sarah and I built a life that was rich with love, adventure, and mutual support. We traveled the world, explored new passions, and continued to grow together. Each day was a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love to heal and transform. Looking back, I realized that Emily's betrayal, while incredibly painful, had ultimately led me to a place of profound happiness and fulfillment. It had taught me valuable lessons about self-worth, resilience, and the importance of surrounding myself with people who genuinely cared for me. To anyone going through a similar experience, my advice is this: trust in your strength, seek support, and believe in the possibility of new beginnings. Life has a way of surprising us, and even in the darkest times, there is always a glimmer of hope. My journey wasn't easy, but it led me to a place of peace and joy I never thought possible, and for that, I am eternally grateful. The end.
Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions in the comments.